Which drug's causing the kidney failure?
Take him off Aztreonam.
I vote to take him off the Vancomycin.
Therapeutic trial. Find the cause of the infection.
What? A house wants to conduct a clinical trial right now on these babies to see which lives and which dies, sacrificing one baby to try and save the other. Very spicy. Very excited to react to House MD Maternity, Season 1, Episode 4, requested by you. Let's see if I can get the diagnosis before House does as a doctor working in the UK.
She's spitting up?
Yeah, I'm second time in an hour.
A little lethargic.
Hey, you're seizing! Get the crap!
Whoa, very strong opener. Wasted no time. The baby has a temperature, is seizing, looks like a newborn, very worrying signs. The top concern right now would be sepsis, leading to that high temperature, which can cause seizure. Babies this young haven't got immunity that's as fully developed as adults, so they're reliant on their mother's breast milk that contains antibodies to protect from new pathogens that they're exposed to. In the uterus, they're pretty much in a sterile environment. The immune system takes time to recognize foreign pathogens and build up a memory bank of cells to fight them efficiently. The baby will have blood tests including cultures and a lumbar puncture to test for meningitis, IV antibiotics into a drip as well. I've done all these procedures on babies before and they're not easy, as the veins, as you can imagine, are absolutely tiny. Not as bad as a toddler though, because they're the worst. As not only are they a little bit chubbier, but they're also strong enough to fight you as well.
Exhibit A, baby girl heartache. Term baby, 42 hours old. Exhibit B, baby boy Howsam, another term baby, 48 hours old. We have an infection spreading in the hospital.
What? 2 babies with fever make it to neonatal intensive care and House calls an outbreak. This hospital must be in a permanent outbreak because I'm sure you'd struggle to find a time where 2 babies don't have fever. It's pretty common. In the first 3 months of life though, it is very serious and those kids are appropriately placed in the intensive care unit. Now what could be causing this other than infection? Broken thermometer maybe? Reminds me of when I was in a neurosurgery ward and every single patient's ECG came up with signs of a heart attack, even though the patient looked absolutely fine. Turns out the healthcare assistant had switched the leads on the ECG machine. Nobody was more relieved than the cardiologist that would have had to do the procedures on all 5 of them though.
The heartache girl has a bowel obstruction. No matter how close their beds are, I'm pretty sure kids can't share a blockage.
Look at the x-ray. It's a normal gas pattern. It's air, no bowel obstruction. Something's infected both these infants.
It's worth noting that adult infectious disease specialists are different to child infectious disease specialists. So House is now stepping into very uncharted territory. It's like a science teacher walking into a maths class and telling them that they're wrong. There's a reason for it too, because children's physiology is very different to adults. They have thinner skin, they breathe more air, they're more susceptible to fluid loss, and they have smaller airway diameters. Anatomically at this age you would still expect unfused skull to help the bones slide over each other during childbirth. Quite impressive really. Looks like House is committed now though, so we're in the puzzle. These 2 kids were in neighbouring rooms and got ill within 4 hours of each other, both at around 48 hours, so 2 days old. We could call this early onset neonatal infection, which a major amount come from the bacteria that live in the mother's vagina called Streptococcus group B. Women are now screened for this before childbirth and treated, so the rates of infection have reduced dramatically. It would be tough for that to fulfill House's criteria of an outbreak though. It could be the outbreak isn't between the children and it's actually between the moms. Could be Legionella that's in the water system, MRSA, VRE, or a hospital outbreak that isn't actually a hospital outbreak. Maybe the moms went to the same restaurant, ate the same contaminated cheese, and both ended up with listeria and the children have become unwell. Maybe. Or maybe both moms got herpes from the same toilet seat. Who knows?
Did you get hot all of a sudden?
Yeah.
cultures will take 48 hours. Might as well be post-mortem. We'll start them on Vancomycin for the MRSA and Aztreonam to cover the rest.
Oh damn, they found a third unwell baby and a fourth is getting there. Looks like their top suspects are the multi-resistant infections that I mentioned, like MRSA, VRE. Those infections are still a problem in hospitals, but at the time of filming this episode 20 years ago, they were an even bigger problem. This is partly because hospitals now have screening protocols to identify, isolate, and treat patients who are colonized with multi-resistant infections before they get any symptoms of infection. If you're admitted to hospital now, you'll notice the nurse will swab your nose and rear end to send these off for testing. Overuse of antibiotics is one of the main reasons why these strains came about in the first place through natural selection. Imagine you've got 1 million bacteria. 100 of them have the gene for resistance to penicillin. You then give that bacterial population exposure to a penicillin antibiotic. The only ones that survive are those 100. So how many of the population have the resistance gene now? 100%. Not only that, but there are no other bacteria in that population that can compete with them for resources and energy and space, so they get to grow unchecked. Rinse and repeat that process with a few different antibiotics and bish bash bosh, you have a multi-resistant infection. Now MRSA can cause abscesses, so it seems like the team wants to do an MRI to check for that. Now House is saying that the tests are going to take a couple of days, but we now have rapid PCR testing that can do that within a few hours, that checks for DNA rather than waiting for the bacteria to grow at its own speed. It's amazing how medicine has developed over the last 2 decades. Small changes, but large results.
Which drug's causing the kidney failure?
Take them off Aztreonam.
I vote to take him off the Vancomycin.
Therapeutic trial. Find the cause of the infection.
What? The House wants to conduct a clinical trial right now on these babies to see which lives and which dies, sacrificing one baby to try and save the other. Very spicy. Here's a question for you smart people. Which of the 4 ethical principles is House violating by conducting this trial? Let me know down below. The MRI found no abscesses, but both children are going into kidney failure because of the antibiotics. That is extraordinarily unlikely. The reason is that kidney failure is a very rare side effect of these antibiotics that are, when they're administered correctly and are monitored, less than 1% occurrence. And it would have to be a susceptible person to get that. For it to happen in both the children at the same time would be less than 0.01%, or like 1 in 10,000. That being said though, we've seen 1 in 10 million infections on House, so the risk of this is actually not that high. Speaking of 1 in a million though, are you one of those rare people who wants to get into our Hall of Fame? There are only 6 spots left. By joining the channel, you get member perks like being able to recommend a series and episode for me to watch, and you get early access to new videos. The faster you join, the faster I can react to your suggestions. So click the join button down below.
Ben White. BP 60 over 20.
Defib. Clear.
Chase. Time of death, 6:57 p.m.
Aztreonam Pseudomonas kid died. That is tough to see. What makes it even tougher is that Cameron gave the parents hope. She didn't tell them how sick their child was because she was very scared to face the truth. Maybe she had some kind of trauma from her past that makes it difficult. Maybe she's lost a child in her past. Guess we're gonna find out when the story unfolds in later episodes. So let's tentatively assume the other child has MRSA and the vancomycin is gonna cure them and it isn't causing them kidney failure, although the fact that this is House means all of that's probably wrong. How does vancomycin actually work though against a multi-resistant Staphylococcus aureus where penicillins would fail? Well, vancomycin targets MRSA's cell wall by basically stopping the glute that holds it together. It binds to the DALA units and stops them from cross-linking. That damages the cell wall, which is very important for the MRSA unit to resist too much water from entering the cell's salty center. So without the cell wall, too much water can enter, and just like a water balloon that's being overfilled, it can burst in a dramatic fashion. Now, penicillins also try and disrupt the cell wall, but MRSA develops an enzyme that can break them down called beta-lactamase, so that stops it from doing its job. Another question for you smart ones out there that have listened to my other video: who discovered penicillin? You get bonus points for saying how and when it was discovered as well, down below.
The vancomycin isn't working either.
What the hell is this? This is a cross-section of the Chenilopina boy's myocardium. Fibrosis, lymphocytic infiltrates.
Okay, so they've thrown the strongest antibiotics at whatever this bug is, and it isn't budging. So either it's an even more super bug, or it isn't a bacterial infection at all. Surely it will be an infection though, since so many kids have got sick. But the question is what? It now seems like we have extra clues like rash, hot damage from the autopsy slide we've just seen, which matches that their blood pressure was so low, fever. So infective causes of all of these symptoms, including myocarditis, could include things like adenovirus, COVID-19, although it didn't exist at the time this was filmed, parvovirus, cytomegalovirus, flu, respiratory syncytial virus, still herpes simplex, Epstein-Barr, or even rubella. The last episode diagnosis was measles, and that was acquired from infancy, so rubella could be an interesting shout for the continuity. Could also be HIV, diphtheria, or toxoplasmosis, or Chagas disease when thinking about other rarer causes. Maybe they have a parasitic tick outburst in the hospital. I bet they're going to test for viruses and start some antivirals next, though. I'm surprised they're not giving us the results of the blood counts. I feel like I'm walking into a bridge blindfolded over piranha-infested waters when I don't have blood tests.
It is a virus infecting their hearts.
Ribavirin and acyclovir don't knock it out.
Cross out the herpes viruses.
Also adenovirus.
That makes 8.
Okay, the team made a very good observation here. The mothers aren't sick, only the children. They're now saying that they need 8 vials of blood to run 8 tests, which is about as true as flat earth theory. One biochemistry tube could actually run all 8 tests. Anyways, I want to know which one this is. Save that Hardig baby. We've had too much pain for one episode.
Well, the sick babies all tested positive for Echovirus 11.
Great.
And CMV and Parvovirus B19. But what's weirder, the healthy kid we tested, he's positive for Echovirus 11 and CMV antibodies as well.
Wait, what? So there was CMV and echovirus infection in both the healthy and the sick kids. But what about Parvovirus B19? That seems to have only affected the sick kids. Is that the one that's causing them to be unwell? Parvovirus B19 is actually the smallest known DNA animal virus. For scale, it's actually 500 times smaller than a red blood cell. It can cause serious problems with things like sickle cell anemia and HIV, and more commonly causes things like slap cheek syndrome in children. It can also precipitate a type of autoimmune disease called Behçet syndrome. I need to find out more though. Seems like House is about to have his eureka moment, and something just doesn't quite fit with parvovirus, as usually it's only immunosuppressed people that would be affected, and seems like none of them are immunosuppressed.
Echovirus 11. There's a company in Pennsylvania developing an antiviral.
Good news. No, it's great.
Oh, it's Echovirus 11. The diagnosis in these first seasons are really tough. House found it by testing the mothers for their antibodies to see what they had been exposed to and what they hadn't. Very interesting. The first season diagnoses are very tough. I'm glad the Arctic child got better because nobody likes a sad ending. That's why escorts are so wealthy. There is a question still here though about how they got echovirus in the first place. Not exactly your bog standard hospital virus. I don't know if they'll answer it. There you have it, people. The index case, probably the same lady that started the COVID-19 pandemic. This is why they've gotten rid of toy boxes in hospitals now. Fun is dangerous. But now it's my turn to diagnose you. It seems like you've got a house reaction deficiency. Oh look, the treatment's popping up right here. Go cure yourself. Stay curious.